Hey y'all, Nev here of One Deal Away, and welcome to another episode. In one of the previous videos, I talked a little bit about kind of what's going on with the stock market and kind of where we are and how unemployment and the manipulation of the money and the market is playing yo-yo with your money and is, in all honesty, designed to impoverish more people under the propaganda of allowing you to potentially make money. In that particular video, I talked about the importance of becoming a sovereign individual, meaning you have a control over your money and your wealth. So in this video, I want to talk about some of those thoughts and ideas of how you can get into that stuff and how to start thinking perhaps a bit differently than what they have been wanting you and what the traditional media and education are forcing upon us. They are throwing it out there as one point of view only on everything because they want us all to go into some sort of direction. But typically what I have found is that when we all follow in one direction, it's sort of, if it's kind of like the sheeple, if you've ever heard of that, right? Where you have all of these animals kind of go in and they sort of follow, and if one goes off the cliff, everybody else kind of just follows in. That is the mass destruction of wealth, and I don't want that for you. I participated in that once or twice in my lifetime, and let me tell you, I didn't like it, didn't enjoy it. It was not pleasant. But that was the best education I could have ever received because it sent me down this rabbit hole of saying I have to figure out how to improve my money, my wealth, my knowledge, and actually then take action based off of those things so that I can start creating true wealth in my life so that I can protect myself regardless of what happens in economy, whether it goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways. It doesn't really matter. I have to protect myself. That is potentially what you want to create for you as well. So what are the ways that we can do that? One of the ways is that you can go out and, of course, start your own business. Businesses are amazing ways to actually start becoming more sovereign, but they can be a bit more challenging. And I know there's a lot of videos and a lot of ads that are saying anybody can do it and you can start it, and yes, I agree, but there's a lot of risk and a lot of different things that you kind of have to put into the motion. It takes a lot of time. There's another way to do it, which is the way that I like to do things, and I found it to be much easier for me. Now, don't go by me, please go by you, but I just want to give you an idea so that you can collect all these different things, put it into your idea box so that you can start looking at that box and throwing things out that don't make sense for you and start using things that actually do make sense for you so that you can take care of yourself and your wealth. So years ago, I have learned about the prospects of real estate and kind of the benefits of it. And perhaps you subscribe to that idea as well, and you have been looking at all the different channels, maybe going on Facebook and posting like, who knows what about real estate, help me out. And then you get like a slew of people of like how they can help you, and most of them are not very helpful. And if you don't know what you're doing, you get yourself in trouble. I know I've gotten myself in trouble with some of the things that I didn't know how to do things, and I would hire somebody who was a professional. And what they did, they would charge me money. It didn't matter whether it performed or it didn't perform. I would lose. I would get all these sort of downward motions. And then, I would get rid of this person, but it doesn't matter because I got rid of them. They made some money and they're going to go and find another sucker. I'll call myself, I was a sucker because I didn't know any better. What I don't want for you is to become another sucker like me, where you get following somebody's footsteps that may or may not have done what they have do. And these days, even though we're supposed to use real sort of feedback of people telling you that like, oh, this person was great and they helped me, on Fiverr for like $5 or $10, you can actually hire somebody to record a video. You give them a transcript, they record it, and you put it out there. It's wrong. It's rigged. I don't agree with it, but it is what is happening. And I want you to be aware of that even this social proof that we're all looking for and want is not always real, y'all. I don't know if you knew, but a lot of things are fake these days. So I don't want you to be a sucker, and I want you to start thinking for yourself. So spend time on some of the free videos. Now I want you to also understand that a lot of the free videos that you're seeing, including my own, I'm going to be completely transparent with you, are big picture thinking. They're not details. And as they say, devil's in the details. You have to understand details, but you can watch some of these free videos to start understanding of who's telling the truth, who's not telling the truth, who are the people that I can sort of trust, what are the things that I can subscribe to that maybe can give me sort of like an easy way out, that if I notice that their teaching, their methodology is not accurate, that I can simply raise the hand or click a button or whatever and let them know, you know what, I'm not buying into your stuff, I want my money back. Those guarantees are incredibly important and incredibly powerful. So you want to look for those things. You want to look for people that are doing things that you want to do, because there's all these gurus out there that are pushing stuff because it's super easy these days, right? I have a little whiteboard, I have a little, camera or cell phone or whatever. I have a fancy schmancy, microphone that I can attach to myself that I can spend, 20, 30, 40, 50 bucks. And, ta-da, I'm on the YouTube, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, whatever. And then I go in and I buy some of this audience, and there's a lot of shady stuff happening, y'all, okay? Super shady stuff. And people are teaching super shady, highly immoral and unethical components of what to do. And it drives me bananas. But that's not why you're here. You are here to start thinking about, well, what physical assets can I get into, Nav, and how do I do this stuff? So let's talk about two specific physical assets that I believe are super important. Now, before we go into it, I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, great. He's going to tell me that these are great, and then there's going to be a website underneath it where I can buy that stuff. Sorry. No, I'm not selling these things. I'm not a broker. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not doing that stuff. I'm an investor. I'm a business owner. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I do a lot of different things, but I'm not a salesperson. I don't have these things to sell you, right? So I'm not selling you on the idea so that I can sell you into the product. I'm selling you on the idea because I believe that it does have a potential to preserve the wealth, to improve the wealth, to grow our wealth, and to create income. One of the first things is gold and silver. Gold and silver. Gold and silver have been money, so to say, for, I don't know, centuries. And, they were money way back when. They were used by central banks to sort of back the paper currency that we're all using these days. There have been some changes since then where we've gone off of the gold standard. You know the whole story. And if you don't, there's plenty of channels, books, videos, movies, whatever, to tell you about this stuff. But what is really cool about gold and silver is that typically in the times of uncertainty, they tend to kind of go up. And these days you can get into ETFs, you can get into stocks, you can get into all these different sort of paper versions of the actual thing. But I believe, again, in some sort of physical. Like, I like to touch my stuff, okay? So that's a piece where I believe in it, and you're able to put it in. I don't know that I would bet a farm on it, because I don't know that I bet my farm on anything, okay? Because everything changes so quickly, and laws are shifting and changing all the times, and sometimes we don't necessarily have any control over those things. So for that reason, I don't believe in betting farm on anything other than our own education, our own line of thinking. But you might want to get some gold and silver because they tend to perform incredibly well over long periods of time, especially when there is uncertainty. So those are easy things to find. You just need to find a reputable dealer. There's some really good dealers actually online. You want to research them, and most of them will actually ship it to your home or ship it to whatever address you want to have. Now, a couple of things: if you do decide to get into the physical stuff, there's some risks to it, okay? So because when you hold something physical, you have to put it somewhere, right? Like this marker. I have to put it somewhere. Like it has to have, now, in my case over here, I have a little jar and that's where it kind of hangs out. But when it comes to having physical gold and silver, you have to have a location where you want to put it. You don't want to necessarily put it in your home, because if people find out that you have like $500,000 worth of gold in your home, well, that lock is lovely, but it's not going to stop somebody who really wants to come in and get it. So you want to get creative of where to put it. There are offsite storage places. Of course, they collect some fees. People get very creative of like where to put it and how to create it. One of the things that I don't think you should put it in are safe deposit boxes in banks. And the reason for that is that anything that is inside the bank, if there's ever a liquidity crisis or whatever, the bank legally has a possession over all of those things, and they can actually hold on to it. They can repossess it, whatever. They're not going to necessarily steal it from you per se. They can pay you, typically discounted. And I don't know why I'm saying this, but like I probably should have said pay you, because it is discounted. You're not going to get a full market value. But gold typically has kind of like, in 2008, right, we had the giant crisis where like stock markets were doing this and then it kind of did this. And then this was like, then it would kind of recovery piece. Gold ended up going also down in value, and then it just kind of like recovered, and it actually beat all of so this is the stocks, this is the gold, then it beat all of the paper asset markets over the course of time, especially if you count for inflation. So that is kind of nice piece to have, and I do like it because it is kind of underpriced, especially if you compare it with some of the other asset classes. Silver is super underpriced. Gold is around 1700 today that I'm doing a video. Like, of course, it goes up and down in a spot price, which is that paper asset traded price. And then if you go to buy physical, then there's like this physical premium, or there are different names for it of what they use, but it's just like the additional fee for actually getting the physical. Silver has, I think it's around like what, $13, $15 an ounce, so it's not very expensive. So you can put in $100 and get a few ounces of that. And it does have a potential. It's much more volatile, but it's not as volatile as like the stock market, although it can be. And one thing to also note is that within the spot price, these two are also heavily manipulated, just like everything else in the paper asset component. All right, so that's one of the things that I believe when it comes to like physical assets. The downside of the gold and silver is that they typically don't pay dividends. Like, you can't get income from these things. There's some sort of exchanges, there's some holding places where you are like quote unquote holder of the physical, but it sits somewhere else and it's through a third party, and then you could like earn things if you like lend it. But that can get a little bit sort of complex, and for me, when I look at gold and silver, it ends up being kind of like an insurance policy. You wouldn't lease your insurance policy to your neighbor, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. But for some reason, we end up doing funny things with these things. I don't know that I believe in that, so I wouldn't necessarily talk about it, but to each their own. You get to make your own decision of what you want to do. The second physical asset that I really, really, really believe in is real estate. Okay? Real estate has an incredible power. It also, just like gold and silver, has existed for centuries. And no, it was not used as money, but it was used as store of wealth. Most of the wealthiest of the people, way back when in history as well as today, own physical real estate. Now, real estate comes in many different forms, in many different valuations, in many different locations, and the price of it is very localized. Gold, for example, has this like very global thing. So if it's $1,700 in the United States, it's going to be $1,700 times whatever the euro is trading at in Europe, for example. So it might be like, I don't know, 1,600 euros, right? So it has this like a global sort of price that is very similar to stocks. Real estate, on the other hand, is very localized. So a house that I buy, let's say it's 1,000 square feet, right? 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom house, right? Exactly same. It could be built by the same person, same amenities, same size, same everything, 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 right? Like imagine exact same house. And you can put it in, I don't know, middle of nowhere, Wyoming. You can put it in Atlanta, Georgia. You can put it in Seattle, Washington. You can put it in London, New York City, Tokyo, West Africa, whatever. Depending on where it's located is going to have a very different price, whether you price it in local currency, US dollars, euros, or even gold and silver. Okay, because it's very localized. So you want to understand where exactly to buy this. Now, there's something very interesting that is also happening and transpiring because of the high unemployment, right? So we've had super high unemployment over the last month, right? The first piece that came through when it comes to unemployment, and I'm going to call it UE, we had 3.3 million people. Then we had 6.8 million people. Then we had 6.6 million people. Now the most recent one that came out this week, right, is 5.6 million, something like that, right? If you add all of this up, plus the previously reported number, we come to roughly 23-ish, okay, million people in United States alone who are unemployed. Now, what that means is that a lot of these people probably own some property. And if they don't own it, they're renting, because we all have to have a place to live. Yes? Okay, so we all have to have a place to live, and so these people over here cannot afford to pay rent, which is okay, because now that is sort of forgotten and forgiven and that kind of stuff, and you can't evict folks, which, right, we could argue right, wrong, that's not sort of the channel, that's not what we're doing here today in this channel, okay? Some of these people own homes, meaning a lot of them have mortgages. A lot of people mortgage their properties, right? Because some people subscribe to the idea that it's a good thing to mortgage it. Some people, that's the only way they can get it. So there's a combination of kind of what's going on. So these people have to go into forbearance, which we're not going to cover in this video because I've already covered in one of the other videos. And if you want that, the links are actually down below. So make sure you check it out. But what's going on is that all of this stuff is creating this sort of thing that is coming our way in a future, and the future is 6 to roughly 18 months from now, potentially a little bit longer. So that's kind of this like tsunami that is coming when it comes to real estate. And a lot of people are talking about that the real estate is going to go down in price, and I agree. This is the future, right? So if you ever wonder what is the future, this is the future. Real estate will go down in price because it has to. All of the economic components and things that are happening right now are going to have an impact on real estate in the near future, okay? And again, as I said, that future could be about 6 months at the earliest, all the way to like 36 months plus. So now we're talking half a year to about 3 years. That's, relatively speaking, long time period. Although globally speaking, that's blimp in time, right? I mean, if we think about like centuries worth of existence, then, 3 years is nothing. But for us right now, it is sort of time. So that's kind of the nice part of it. But people are talking about the prices dropping. And so now there is this thing called fear of getting into the real estate market, because if I'm going to buy this house, for example, for $100,000, right, and goes down, say 30%, which is not unrealistic given everything that is happening, then this exact same house is going to be valued at $70,000. So a lot of people don't want to get into real estate because if I buy it today for $100,000 and a year from today is valued at $70,000, like I lost $30,000. That's a big loss, y'all. That's a big loss. And of course, because most of us are buying it through credit, that means that it's leveraged. So our impact is that much greater, right? That's where the fear comes in. Now, there are ways that if you're going to buy real estate through traditional means, meaning you find it on Zillow, you call your broker or whatever, however you end up doing, drive around the neighborhood and you see the house and you buy it on the market, then this reel is very much substantiated because that is the reality. Prices are going to drop. Now, is it going to be 30% or 10% or 50% or 80%? I don't know, right? Nobody knows. We can try to guesstimate based off of the historical performance and kind of what happened, but none of us know exactly how this is going to play out. I just have sort of a global picture of kind of how I can think through it. But there are ways to get into real estate without paying the full market price. And that is done in what is called an off market. Now, off market is where things are not advertised to MLS, they're not advertised to realtors, they're not advertised on Zillow. It's more of the say that this is the house, right? And I own it and I just want to sell it, and I just kind of like reach out to 3-4 people or 100 people or 10,000 people, whatever, how big your network is, and say, hey y'all, I'm selling this house. Does anybody want it? Like, I'm thinking like, it's valued at this. I'm going to sell it at this. Do we want it? We can engage in back and forth in sort of what is known as price discovery, where I want one thing, you want to pay another thing, and we kind of go back and forth until we agree on the price, and that is what ends up being the true value of this particular asset. Okay, that's what off-market is. Sometimes off-market is done through wholesalers. Sometimes it's done through sort of the connected people who know people who have networks, who have properties, whatever, right? Sometimes it's just sort of like me calling people that I know and saying, hey, I want to sell this thing. But there's also another off-market, which is, it's called off-market, but it is public, right? And those are the foreclosure markets. Now, it's called off-market because it's not on this traditional MLS market with the realtors, but it is public because all auctions, and that's how these things are sold, through auctions, are public. They are not really well known, and some people might have heard about it. They're not quite familiar with it. And so what ends up happening is that you have different types of foreclosures. One of the better known foreclosures, thanks to 2008, are the bank foreclosures, meaning I had a house, I had a mortgage, I didn't pay it for whatever reason, the bank repossesses the whole thing legally, and then they sell it on the market as a foreclosed property. Then you can come in, you can buy it, and then you own it, right? That's one of the auctions, one of the foreclosures. The second foreclosure, and before I get to the second one, this sort of the bank foreclosure, there's still a little bit of something there, but because of these numbers that are happening, that is going to become more prevalent over the upcoming months and years, and that is why I believe the prices will actually drop in value. That's one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons. Now, there's a secondary off-market or tertiary, because we talked about the private, we talked about the banks. There's a tertiary private off-market sort of thing that is happening on the auctions where it actually has to do with tax deeds. Now, if I was to own this property, right, I have to pay taxes on it. We all agree to that. So even if I don't have any mortgage, even if I choose not to have any insurance on a house, which I don't agree with, you should always have insurance on a house just in case, because it doesn't make sense not to protect something that is super expensive with something that doesn't cost a whole lot of money, right? But to each their own. But if I don't pay taxes on this property, right, which is why I always say, like, your house is never truly your own. Even if you pay off all of the mortgages, you still have to pay taxes. If you don't pay taxes, the government can legally say, not longer yours, now it's mine. Okay? You go away, and now they own this property. But governments don't want the property. What the heck are they going to do with it? Governments need one thing, y'all, and that's money. Now, what they'll do is they will take this stuff, because they can't build roads with it. They can't do stuff that they need to do. They can't pay employees and stuff. So they have to sell it for money that they can actually then use to pay their employees and schools and all blah, 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 right? So this is where the investors come in, they bid on it, they take possession of it, they continue to pay taxes, government continues to run. Because for government, taxes are the source of income, all right? So one thing to keep in mind. These things, right, these tax deeds are sold in public auctions. Some of them are in person, some of them are online, some of them are through, old snail mail, right? Like when you actually write the letter, lick the envelope, send it off, and then they receive it, they open it, and then they write you back. And so there's multiple ways to get into it, but the key component is that these properties exist and they're sold at a deep discount. So now I can have, right, a property right here that is valued at, say, $100,000, okay, on the market. So this is the market value, right? Maybe it's assessed at $70,000, right? Assessed value. And assessed value is sort of the taxable value. This is what the government kind of puts in, but they put it for sale for, say, $5,000. Okay? Now, my question to you is, if you could find a house, right? If you could find a house that is valued $100,000 on the market, right? But you can find it for $5,000, would that be a good deal? I mean, I don't know, right? Like for me, yes, but I'm not you. My question to you is, if you can find a property that is being sold at $5,000 that is valued $100,000, would it be worth your investment? Would trying to learn how to find these things, would that be worth a little bit of time and your investment? That's what the question is. Look, the reason that these houses over here are selling for $100,000 is because people don't know how to find these things or how to evaluate them, right? So they don't have the knowledge of how to do this stuff. This is easy. You go to Zillow, you swipe, 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 or maybe you swipe, swipe, swipe this way, or maybe scroll, 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 right? Or you pick up a phone and you call a realtor, right? This is why you're paying super high prices on the market value, because they're easy to be found. You don't need any education. You don't need any knowledge. You don't need to research the stuff. You just sort of buy it, but you buy it at a much higher price. This over here, however, some of these, that are being sold at $5,000, their value is $2,000, right? Well, that doesn't make sense. You're like, I'm not paying $5,000 for something valued $2,000. Thank you very much, right? But how do you tell the difference? This is where knowledge comes in, y'all. This is the part where you want to go out and research and learn and find out, like, how do I discover what this thing is valued to understand whether 5,000 or 10,000 or 20,000 is a good investment, right? Okay? But there are properties that are actually selling for a fraction of the value. Now, let's say you learn how to do that. Let's say you go in and you buy it. Let's say that there is a bidding and you actually end up paying $10,000 for this property, right? So you pay $10,000. The value is still $100,000 in the market, because when you do the research, when you look at comparable properties in that area, right? I mean, if I'm buying a house in LA, I'm not going to compare it to a price of a house in London. Like, that doesn't make sense. I'm going to compare it to other homes that are in LA. If I'm buying something in London, I'm going to compare it to other prices in London. Makes sense, right? So say that I buy this for $100,000, but it's valued at, buy it at $10,000, but it's valued at $100,000. Now, we already said the market is going to drop. So they say that the market does drop, and this is no longer valued at $100,000. Maybe it's valued $50,000 because, right, this is the new value, because the market dropped 50%. But how much did you spend on it? You spent only $10,000. So if I spent $10,000 and now it's valued $50,000, am I up or am I down? Up, right? Now, if I bought it for $100,000 and it goes down in value 50 It goes down to $50,000, but I bought it at 100. I am down $50,000. I lost a lot of money. And yes, potentially over the time, it could actually go up there, but I'm losing on that time and the money that I could have made. Now, if I bought the same house for $10,000 and it was $100,000, but it dropped down to $50,000, I am still up $40,000. I am not sweating as much as somebody who bought it at the market price. This knowledge is the key to start to look at differently through deals so that you can own and control physical assets that now you can do all kinds of stuff with, right? If I buy this house, let's play pretend that this is a house that I paid $10,000, but it's valued $50,000, right? Can I sell it for 50? Sure, because the market is, that's what things are selling at. Can I sell it at 40 so that it goes a little bit faster? Duh, of course I can. Am I losing money if I sell it at 50 or 40? I'm not. I'm making profit if I sell it. Do I have to sell it? I don't. What else can I do with it? Well, I can live in it. I can rent it, right? I can gift it, right? If I need a tax break, maybe I take this and I gift it to a local church or local hospital, or local whatever, right? And be able to get a tax break. So you get a lot of control when you get to own this thing of what you can do with it in order to make yourself kind of move ahead. You don't rely on other people and on other things. And this is where the part of the knowledge comes in incredibly important. Would you agree? So, this is what we teach at One Deal Away. We actually teach people how they can monetize this stuff, what they can do with it, give some ideas, give some formulas, give some all kinds of some things that you actually will need. All those details, as we said, big picture thinking is really good to understand the direction where you want to go. But the devil of success is in the details, and you need to understand it. And that is what we're trying to do here for you. That's what I want to do for you, because this is what I've done for my students, for my family, for my friends, for my network. And I want to be able to expand my network and expand as many people as possible to be able to get this type of service. The biggest reason of why I want to do this is because what is happening within the paper markets is rigged and it's wrong, and it's depleting the middle class, and it's making poor poorer, and it's making middle class drop into the poor class. When we have a separation of the highly rich and highly poor, we start getting into revolutions and wars. And you know what? As somebody who's lived through a civil war, I don't want to live through it ever again. So I am doing my part to try to help as many individuals as possible to get people to lift them back up, because I believe that if I help enough people to lift us as a society, we'll be able to prevent what I believe that the elite is trying to do, which is eliminate us completely. I don't want that. So I believe that the only way that we can fight is if we become sovereign on our own and are able to sort of move forward, move our families and our network forward, so that we can start benefiting as well, so that we have enough power behind not just our own free speech, but it also funds to be able to say, you know, I'm voting with my money and I vote for this. I'm no longer voting for that. This is where the key difference is going to come in. For years, for decades, everything on media and social media has been built to tear us apart, tear us down, and make us feel horrible about who we are and everybody else. I want to be a force for good, and I believe that by joining me, you too want to be a force for good. We want to help other people, we want to lift the society, we want more people to receive education, housing, freedom of speech, and ability to truly thrive within this world, so that we can lift up the whole world. That is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that is the reason why I want you to join. So I hope that this is helpful to you and that it has opened your eyes of what is actually possible around the world. This exists in the United States. It exists in many other countries. I'm not an expert of how it all works in your particular country, but I can speak intelligently of how it works in the United States because I have done this. This is the process that has allowed me to go from completely broke and in debt back in 2008 and 2009 when the market crashed and I followed and just went off the cliff with everybody else, to become financially independent in my 30s. And when I used to tell people that I want to come to the point where I can retire in my 30s, people used to laugh at me. They're not laughing now. Now, I'm not retired because sitting at the beach, while it sounds lovely for like a week, push it for two, it's pretty darn boring. So I'm young, I have things to say, I have things to offer, and I want to be a productive member of society. So I'm doing these things because I want to be able to help out people, because I believe in teaching, in helping people out. I don't believe in just handing out the fish, as they say. I believe in teaching people how to fish so that each and every one of us can become a sovereign individual where we can take care of ourselves and never have to rely on anybody else, including that broker or the salesperson or the owner of whatever, that we can rely on ourselves, because that is the only way that I believe that we can get out of this hot mess. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe and share these videos with anybody whom you deem could benefit from this stuff. Until next time, stay forever money blessed, and do remember, you are only one deal away.